welcome to another edition of the Stogie video review. My name is Walt, and well, I'm back once again for another video cigar review. If you're not familiar with StogieReview.com, here you're going to find a couple video reviews a week, as well as a written review and a few other written articles, most of which everything is supported by, or supplemented rather, by video content. So with that said, here is your weekly cigar review, your video review. And the cigar that I'm reviewing this week is the El Mejor Emerald. The band says Gran Reserva. I think the Espressos actually say the same thing. There's two varieties of the cigar. There's the Emerald and the Espresso. I think the Espresso is the older one. But this particular cigar, two people actually sent me this. The first person who sent me this cigar was Paul. Now, I actually got a second package later on from Steve, who had sent me some Eco cigars, and sent a few of these to tag along. I'm actually smoking one of the ones that Steve sent me, and well, when I initially got this package, I looked at the Ziploc bag and noticed the brown spot on the foot, and I thought, oh, that's just one of those cloth bands. I knew absolutely nothing about the cigar. I put it in the humidor, and well, I'm finally getting around to it, and sure enough, that's not a brown band on the foot. That's an exposed binder and filler. It's a shaggy cigar, and in addition, it's got a pigtail cap. Now, I know when a lot of people see this type of cigar, the first thing I think is, wow, I'm getting an extra. Well, you're really not getting an extra. You're getting a shortcut. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but the exposed foot, if you look at it closely, you can see that the leaf is wavy, so it's not actually put on there and then cut back off. It's the leaf is cut and the cigar is rolled, leaving the foot exposed, and they just trim the end before they hit the wrapper leaf, and there's your shaggy foot. It saves time. And same with the pigtail cap. When the cigar is formed and the wrapper is put on, they go around once more. Which is the straight line that you see on this particular cigar. Well, if you look at your cigar, you'll see it too. And then from there, it's just kind of twisted up, pigtailed, and cut short. Now, traditionally, when a cigar has a single cap, this pigtail is formed the same way. It's just cut closer. You may see someone whack it down a couple of times, and then a cap will be applied, and you're done. So you've got two shortcuts here, which dramatically reduce the price. They can produce more cigars in a shorter amount of time, thus making it cheaper for the end user, which is you and I. So unless the cigar just tastes awful, there's really no downside to this. Now, on to get away from that a little bit of a lecture there. As I mentioned, the brand is the El Mejor. It's the Emerald. This is a Robusto. It's a 5.5 by 50. I'm sorry. It's got a Honduran Corojo wrapper and Nicaraguan binders and fillers. And the origin, I'm not exactly sure of. Now, if you head over to cigarsinternational.com, you're going to find boxes of 20 of these for about $39, and they're going to say the origin is Honduras. Now, in the other research that I've done, I'm coming up with. Let me explain. During my other research, I found that the maker of this cigar is Don Kiki Berger from Tabacalera Esteli, and well, that would be Nicaragua, or at least I would think Esteli, Nicaragua, Tabacalera Esteli. So I'm thinking that the cigar is actually made in Nicaragua and not Honduras. Now, Don Kiki Berger, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He also makes cigars which include the 7LE Nicaraguan Reserve, the 5 Vegas line, or the 5 Vegas Classic for sure, and the Cupido line. So we don't really know the origin. We do know who makes it. And the translation of El Mejor translates to the greatest. And these come in at about $3 per stick throughout most of the line, $3-4 a piece, and they're available in about 4 sizes: Churchill, which is 50 by 7, Corona, which is 42 by 6, Robusto, which is 5.5 by 50, and a Torpedo, which is 4.5 by 6. All of the El Mejor Emeralds have a shaggy foot and the pigtail cap. They also come with cedar sleeve attached to them. Now, into the specifics about the cigar, or in my experience. Now, when I pulled this cigar, when I pulled this cedar sleeve off the cigar, it really exposed a pretty ugly cigar. I've got a few cracks, a lifting wrapper, some chipping, and it just overall doesn't look very good. But really, looks are deceiving. $3 cigars that look really bad can taste really good, so I'm not going to hold that against it. There's a handful of just medium-sized veins that add a slight lumpiness to it. But overall, the wrapper it's got a slight grittiness to it. Now, when you pinch it head to foot, I'm afraid to do this really hard because we've got so many cracks. I'm afraid I'm going to make them worse. The cigar feels pretty consistent head to foot. It's firm, and there's no real soft spots to it. And the aroma is kind of it aired out a little bit. It was pretty bad, as was the aroma on the foot. It just had a really intense, just pungent aroma, and I'm not really sure what exactly it was. The cedar smelled the same way, but now the cedar actually smells like cedar, and well, the cigar is airing out a little bit. So let's hope that that pungent sort of aroma doesn't translate through to the smoke itself, and get this thing clipped, lit, and go from there. The cold draw, you can certainly taste the cedar. It actually comes through pretty strong, and the pre-light draw is decent. There's very little resistance, and that cedar flavor is not bad. So let's get the cigar lit and go from there. I was actually going to try using the cedar sleeve to light the cigar, but I was afraid I was going to have a Jerry moment and it was just going to erupt into flames, and don't really want to set the house on fire, so we'll try that when we're outside. It's a little difficult to get lit because of the exposed binder and filler. You get a lot of air leaks around it. But actually, I'm kind of surprised. The flavor is very pleasant to start. The best I can tell, it's evenly lit. It's burning, it's producing smoke. So with that said, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back. We'll get into the first third and talk about the El Mejor Emerald a little bit.
Drunken sailor, what do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Way hey, and up she rises, way hey, up she rises, way hey, up she rises early in the morning. Shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor early in the morning. Way hey, and up she rises, way hey.
Well, hello and welcome back. I've been at this cigar for about 30 minutes now, and I'm well on my way to smoking through the first third. And first and foremost, this, as I mentioned in the pre-light, this is a hideous-looking cigar. Now the cigar is burning. I moved past the shaggy foot, and as I got closer to the small chips and cracks and the lifting wrapper, they're getting worse as the heat gets closer to them. Now, on the positive side, the flavor is very nice, so I really don't mind the ugliness of it right now. The interesting part of this cigar was the transition from the shaggy foot to the Corojo wrapper. Now, when you first get that shaggy foot lit and you begin to taste the smoke from it, it's got a very intense cedar flavor, and I'm guessing it's because of the exposed binder and filler is so close to the cedar sleeve that it just sort of wicks in all the aroma and the oil from the cedar sleeve, and it becomes very predominant early on in the cigar. Now once you move past that and you start getting into the wrapper itself, you really see a shift in the flavor change. You really see a shift in the flavor. Now it goes from being this sort of heavy cedar flavor, and it transfers over to that traditional Corojo flavor that I always talk about. It just comes through, and the interesting part is that it's very apparent. It's just sort of like a light switch. As soon as you hit that wrapper, you begin to taste it, and it's interesting to see exactly how much you taste that wrapper. Now the cedar flavors are still there, but they're sort of buried in the background. The Corojo flavor really takes center stage. Now, as I mentioned, there was that sort of a pungent aroma that I was afraid was going to come through in the cigar, and it's very mild when you pass the smoke through your sinuses, and I really don't know what it is. I just can't place it. I don't like the smell of it, but it's so mild when you pass it through your sinuses that it doesn't bother me too much. And I'm also picking up a little bit of a spice, again, when I blow the smoke through my sinuses. And all in all, I mean, I'm very surprised by the flavors of the cigar so far. It is certainly one of those things where you just don't judge a book by its cover. This is a prime example of that. Here we have a cigar that just does not look very appealing, and it tastes pretty nice. Now, the body's in the medium range, and the finish is easy on the palate. It's fairly light. It's got a mild, creamy texture to it. Just all in all, everything works pretty well together at this point. Now, as I mentioned, I just got to make sure that these small splits and cracks don't expand too much that the wrapper just starts falling off. But so far so good. Everything seems to be controllable. The burn line is getting fairly wavy. The ash is, I don't know, medium to dark in color. It's sort of compacted, and I actually had the ash drop off at less than an inch and just kind of plopped on the table in front of me. And the interesting thing there was that it maintained its shape, and there was some ash around the bulk piece, but for the most part everything stayed intact even with that fall. So it goes to show that the tobacco is rolled well, and there's not a lot of loose and just loose pieces in there, loose pieces of filler, where it would just kind of fall apart. It was nice and compacted. If you look at the foot, directly at the foot, you can see a slight color variation where the Ligero is, and judging by the color, there isn't a whole lot in there. There's a small piece, but I'd show you, but it's probably pointless. You really wouldn't be able to make it out. But anyway, so far so good. I'm enjoying it. So with that said, I'm going to smoke some more of my El Mejor Emerald, and I'll be back. We'll do the second, third, and see if the cigar changes at all.
What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Hey ho, and up she rises. Hey ho, and up she rises. Hey ho, and up she rises early in the
Well, welcome back, and as you can see, I'm plugging right along. It's been about an hour now, and most of my burn problems have actually corrected themselves. It's kind of surprising. The lifting and the splitting that was getting worse from the heat of the foot, I've gotten past all those chips and minor cracks and whatnot, and now we're down to a cigar that's burning without blistering. It's the burn line is fairly even at this point. Now it's going back and forth from being wavy to just like this, where it's fairly even, and it's been fairly erratic. It's done this quite a few times, so we'll see if this holds true and becomes the norm and it stays this way. The ash is still dark in color. It's firm, it's compacted, it holds on to the cigar. Kind of lousy, actually. At about 3/4 of an inch or so, the ash just suddenly just drops, and it leaves sort of like a sandy texture on the table, but the bulk of the ash stays put. I mean, it doesn't bust all apart. It's pretty solid for the most part. In terms of body, there's been a slight progression. It's still very well planted in the medium range, and the finish is getting a little more creamy as we go along. Now, it hangs in the palate for I don't know, a few minutes before it starts to subside, and it's that nice sort of creamy texture that kind of lingers. As far as the flavor goes, it's been very one-dimensional so far. Ever since I hit that Corojo wrapper, that's really been the primary focus. The cedar flavors that I was picking up before are still just sort of lingering in the background. They're not coming forward. And the Corojo tobacco flavor is showing no signs of going anywhere. The cigar's just been very consistent in that department. And as I mentioned, the burning properties and whatnot. So overall, I mean, up until this point, I'm enjoying the cigar, and I'm very surprised by this one. It looked awful. I kept looking at the cigar, and as soon as I smelled it, I thought, what am I getting myself into? This cigar is going to be terrible. I didn't really read up on anything on the cigar to find out if people liked it or if it was just a hideous cigar that just tasted terrible. But I just started looking around a little bit, and I'm surprised that there are a lot of people out there that like it. And judging by all the forum comments, these can be easily found on Cigar Bid for less than $3 a piece, typically around $2 a piece. So it makes for a very affordable cigar, and I'm certainly not disappointed in the flavor. I'm happy with it at this point. So with that said, I'm going to take a quick break, smoke a little bit more of my El Mejor Emerald. I'll be back. We'll do the final third, wrap things up, and I'll let you be on your way.
This is another new song I've been working on. It's about one of my favorite hobbies. Oh, they call me Hangin' Johnny. Away, boys, away. But I never hanged nobody. And it's hang, boys, hang. Well, first I hanged me mother. Away, boys, away.
Well, welcome back, and as you can see, my cigar is getting kind of short, and well, it's about time to wrap up my El Mejor Emerald. Now, traditionally I go further than this, but the cigar is giving me those telltale signs that it's about time to give up on it. Now, as I'm at about 110 minutes, so about an hour and a half, all but. And, well, the body has progressed some more. It's still very much in the medium range. It doesn't quite get medium to full. The finish has become a little more creamy, and it tends to linger for a few minutes on the palate before it fades, and you're about ready for another puff. Now, the base flavor is just, it's still very one-dimensional. It hasn't changed at all since the previous third, and I'm getting just a typical Corojo tobacco flavor, and there's still cedar flavors in the background. Now, the only unfortunate change I'm getting now is sort of a harshness and just a dirty taste. Now, the reason I think I'm getting that is the cigar is becoming hot, and I've been able to prolong it a little bit by leaving it sit in the ashtray for 3-4 minutes before I pick it up and take another puff on it, but as soon as I take that next puff, the cigar gets very hot again, and I start getting these harsher flavors. And there's still some enjoyable flavor in there, but it's just not worth dealing with the harshness for, if you quite get where I'm going there. The harshness is, it's it's overshadowed by the nice flavors, but it's enough to kind of turn me off. And that sort of pungent aroma that I was getting before, I'm starting to pick it up more in the room aroma now, and it's becoming a little more pronounced when I pass the smoke through my sinuses. Now, you know, when I pass the smoke through my sinuses, I'm still getting that mild spice, but really there's nothing else going on that I'm picking up. Now, in terms of what I thought of the cigar, or actually before I even get into that, we'll touch base on the burning characteristics. Once I got past the spots where the wrapper was lifting a little bit, the chips and the small cracks, the cigar really behaved well. The burn is a little uneven now, but it's well within reason. It's acceptable, you know, as far as my standards go. The ash is fairly dark. It's firm, compacted. Just like before, it doesn't it doesn't hold on very long before it suddenly drops onto the table. And I've had that happen about half a dozen times now. And just like before, it just kind of plops on the table and stays in one big chunk. And you know, you get this sort of sandy ash all around it, which is, I think it says a lot for the construction, since it's such a solid ash. It tells me that there's a lot of tobacco there that's properly rolled and formed. There might be some, I'm not quite sure why it doesn't hold on so long. Maybe there's some mixed fill in there, and the ash just doesn't hold because it's not one long, you know, leaf. But in terms of what I thought of the cigar, you know, I was very surprised, or pleasantly surprised, I should say, because I looked at this cigar and it was just hideous. It looked ugly. It smelled awful, I think. And I really thought I was going to have to force myself to smoke it. I thought, there's no way I'm going to like this cigar. It smells bad. It looks bad. You know, it looks like a burn problem waiting to happen. And while I did fight through some burn problems, I was very surprised by the flavor. It was consistent. There were enjoyable flavors there, and the fact that you can get these cigars for about $3 a piece regularly from Cigars International is very surprising. I mean, you know, as I mentioned in the last part of this video, if you head over to cigarbid.com, there's people that are picking these up for, you know, $2 and under per single when you break out a bundle auction price. So, you know, these are very affordable, budget-friendly cigar. And if you like a one-dimensional cigar, medium body, and you're looking to cut back on your cigar funds a little bit, this is a cigar you might want to try. This would be great for when you're doing something around the house, or you're doing whatever. You just want a cigar as a companion, and you don't want to focus on it too much. You know, this cigar it's fairly well behaved. You know, once I got past the cracks and whatnot, it behaved fairly well. And if you're not sitting somewhere important where you're worried about dropping the ash, it shouldn't be a problem at all. But again, like I said, I was very surprised by the fact that it was much better than I thought it was, and it's a perfect example of why you shouldn't judge a cigar purely on its looks. I mean, it had an ugly, shaggy foot, pretty ugly pigtail cap, cracks, splits, chips in the wrapper, and you know, it didn't burn too bad, and flavor was decent. So all in all, I liked it, and I'll probably be smoking more of these in the future. So with that said, thanks Paul and Steve for sending me these cigars. I'm looking forward to smoking the remaining probably 5 or 6 that I have left from you guys. So thanks again, and well, I'm not quite sure what's coming up next week. I've got a lot of cigars that I need to get to, which are long overdue, and for anyone that sent me cigars and I haven't gotten to them yet, I apologize for that. So until next week, happy smoking.